Hi, I'm Mike,
And I'm Maria.
and this is
NF
Nfgeeks. Okay, well, Maria, in our last conversation, you were kind of um, moving into some of your more spiritual stuff that you do, that you're involved with, that you think about, and you mentioned shamanism once or twice, and that's important, I think, because a lot of INFJs I know, like INFJ front row seat, also sort of feels shamanistic in their being.
Hug.
Oh boy, she's so thrilled that you did that. But it's not just her either. I've heard this time and time again from INFJs. So I think it would be helpful for the INFJs and I guess NFs in general if you could talk about that. So when we say shaman or shamanistic, how do you define the term as the person who's involved?
One definition that I absolutely love that made the most sense to me, and I've heard a lot of definitions.
Can't wait.
Someone, a good friend of mine, sent this to me. She said, "Maria, a shaman is one who sees in the dark."
But that is so INFJ.
Holy
cow.
After many, many years, since I was a little kid, because I was brought to a lot of different healers of all different cultures. Like, we had a lot of the Native Americans, a lot of the Hindus, a lot of just whatever I was surrounded with growing up. And those were the prominent cultures that were there. And then as I grew older, other people from other sects, like I had a lot of I guess you call them fortune tellers or reminder, whatever like that.
Sure.
They, everyone would approach me and say like, "This is who you are. You're a shaman. You're a healer." And I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" And finally, in my later 20 years, that's what someone told me that, and I was like, "That makes the most sense to me."
Yeah, actually, a lot of INFJs kind of talk about it as a calling.
Yes,
and they don't necessarily always use that term, but they're referring to it as if they're talking about a calling.
I actually had a calling. I was in college. I was 19, and I was in a sweat lodge. It was my English professor. We were doing an environmental literature course, and at her home, she has a sweat lodge. She's a shamanic practitioner and healer. She and her husband. And so instead of our final exam, she's like, "Why don't you come to my house and we'll have a sweat lodge? You can experience this." And a sweat lodge is a spiritual cleansing ceremony. And so it was a very stormy, snowy day in Vermont, and our car kind of broke down on the way there, and we got everyone to push it, and we all said this was our task that we had to do before our spiritual cleansing to get back into the womb of Mother Earth. So we felt like this is how it works. You get a hard task to get there.
Sure.
And I was struggling my first few semesters in college with who I am and what am I supposed to be doing. Because I was having all of these experiences in my life that said, "No, you really should be a healer." This voice inside me telling me you should do something more than just being an English major and an environmental science major. And like, no, you shouldn't be about like, reading books and using your mind to write papers. Your hands need to be involved and helping.
Again,
that's what you need to do.
And that sounds very INFJ to me.
And it felt like a very big responsibility. And when you're a child, you don't want that. When you're a teenager, you run away from responsibility as much as you can.
Sure.
But I write a lot, and
like a good INFJ.
Yeah. And in part of my English classes, we wrote tons and tons of journals. And I was very, very fortunate to have these amazing literature professors who were deeply spiritual people and weren't afraid to talk about those issues. In fact, the very first day of my very first college English class, in my Composition 1 class, we did the Myers-Briggs test.
Oh, really?
And so that's how I learned about the Myers-Briggs when I was 19 years old taking this test. She's like, "This is a really fun way," and we actually studied it for 2 weeks. It was fantastic. It was the greatest icebreaker you could ever do in a class because we were like, everyone was interested in it. Like afterwards of learning about your types, and she would talk about all the types, and we would journal all the time. Whenever we had to write a paper, excuse me, we had to write. And through my writings, I was talking about these experiences that I was having as a healer, and being sick. I was starting to get very, very, very sick, and I was using so many different modalities to help me get better. I was seeing tons of doctors and tons of holistic practitioners that I was like, wow, I saw this like massage therapist today, and it was more than just like getting my muscles relaxed. It was a very deep deeply involved process. And so in the Sweat Lodge, and I see the Sweat Lodge as you are entering the womb of Mother Earth. So you get to return, you know?
Sure.
At the very beginning. And when you emerge, you get to be a new person, if you want to be, I guess. Like, you know, fresh and shiny and take on a new perspective. So while in the lodge, I heard this voice in my head saying, you have to do this. You have to be a healer. If you don't, your life will be misery. It will be complete misery. People need you. Please help them. And it got me, like, right here. And I remember in the lodge, I just started crying, just, like, letting out. It felt like I was letting out, like, a millennia of tears. of just everything, of, like, every emotion that could ever be felt. And the best way to express it was just to cry, because it was, okay, I get it. Fine, I will accept this, but this is a huge responsibility that you're asking of me, and I don't really think I'm the person for the job. I mean, when you're a teenager,
sure,
and you get a spiritual calling to do very, very intense work, to be with the public, not something a super introverted person wants to be. It's like, no, I want to be in my art studio and painting all alone.
Maria, how do you, in your way, see in the dark? That's a wonderful way of describing. That might be the title of the video. Seeing in the dark. Yeah. Well, what ways do you personally see in the dark?
I honestly, this is something I work very hard at.
Great.
Working on to make more powerful or stronger.
Sure.
I practice on seeing beyond what's in front of me.
Okay.
And it's not like it's a trick of the eye.
No. This is Nfgeeks. We get it.
But when you're looking at a person.
Sure.
And it's like the first time you're meeting them, and you want to check out good news, bad news. Is this person shady? Is this person I want to talk to? I have to look beyond them and get a sense of, like, what's going on the outside, what colors are around you, what's the feeling that I'm getting, like, what's the physical vibrations you're giving off.
Sure.
You know, what's going on with your chakras? Are things blocked? Are you putting out too much?
Okay.
You know, are there things attached to you? Like, I see a lot of, and this is gonna sound, but seeing...
please, the NFs are gonna love it. Go ahead. Say it. Don't be afraid.
I have no other word for this.
Yeah,
but
go
I've
ahead.
Seeing
it's Nfgeeks. Go
dark
ahead.
entities attached to people.
Yes, I've heard INFJs use the same metaphors.
You want to stay away from those people, but you're polite about, like, hey, I have to go. Don't ever come near me again. Bye. But you don't really say it like that, but you're very polite about it, and you're like,
sure.
Peace, I gotta go.
Sure. Granted, the other types, again, like the NTs, they may not appreciate this. But the INFJs, I've heard many INFJs almost use the exact same words. So the INFJs are fine with you.
Okay, I guess I don't know any INFJs that much because no one really...
Well, INFJ is rare.
That's me.
That's why. INFJs are
They're
rare.
Just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they're the rarest of the of all the types, let alone in NF. Actually, ENFP is the largest in the NFs.
Ah.
Half of all NFs are ENFPs. But only 1 out of 4 ENFPs are men.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. I know, I like those odds. You know, you'd think it would be working for people.
Hey,
still,
baby, I'm a male and I'm an ENFP.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get back to your seeing in the dark and your shamanism. How are you acting as... all right, wait. I'm going to try to word it out in my head. Mm-hmm. You know, ENFPs think outside. We don't think internally. Mm-hmm. We think externally. So I'm, like, speaking, trying to form the question as I say it. Okay. The way shamans have been described in terms of, like, primal religions and going way back is that somebody who helps someone transcend.
Yes.
Okay, so in other words, I mean, that's why a lot of various hallucinogen and psychedelic things are used with something you got to drink or whatever.
Yeah, because you're trying to get into you're trying to enter their spiritual world.
Right.
And you're trying to get whatever needs to be expelled out
Sure.
of them.
All right. So then, how do you? All right. So then, in your own view of shamanism, how
Mm-hmm.
do you help people transcend? And what are they transcending from to when
Um,
you do it?
Okay. Well, I don't.
Or maybe not whether you do it, but the way you see it.
Okay. Um, I guess I have my own personal. I call it like the healing posse, my own posse, my divine posse that
The divine posse.
that I call upon.
That's great.
So I have a lot of
This is-
beings and goddesses that I call upon, depending on what situation I'm in and who needs to be there. And I call
Sure.
upon my ancestors, and I ask for their wisdom, and I ask for their guidance.
This is great. This is like INFJ porn.
If we talk about food, I might have to change my clothes. So I call them in. I call in the healing posse. I call in the divine ones, and I call in, people to help. And I also tap in if I'm with another being. I ask them quietly if there are other people from their healing team that need to come forth. Please have them come in and sort of make whatever space we're in. It's very sacred, and with their guidance, and when I close my eyes, the world that I see is very difficult to put in words because it's in very vibrant colors and patterns and shapes that I've never seen in the real world. So it's very difficult for me to describe these patterns that I've seen. But the interesting thing is that with some shapes that I've seen, I would try to research them and finding out that they're somehow linked with divine shapes in various cultures.
Believe me, this is so INFJ.
So I use these, so when I'm physically feeling from a person, and I find that certain emotions and certain physical ailments, like cancer, has a feeling that I know what it feels like. I know what cancer feels like on my hands. There's a vibration that's there. There's a pattern of energy flowing that I know is cancer. There's a energy feeling that I know is anxiety, depression. Like there's just so many that after all these years of being in this profession, I know what they feel like.
Sure. And this is all very, I have to say, this is all very, you speak NF very fluently.
Do I?
You do. And if you're not actually an NF, okay, I will eat my sandals, live on Nfgeeks. Okay, only an NF could talk like this. So, all right, well, wait, I want to ask, so let me ask something. What, and I know this is, I guess, morbid, but when do you experience darkness? Like when in your shamanism, or what kind of incidences, when you experience something, you're like, whoa, that's weird, that's bad, that's, when do you feel the dark side of the force?
Well, see, here's the thing. Like, darkness for me is not what you're thinking of darkness. Like, I see darkness as we have two sides. We have our light side, we have our shadow side.
Yeah, no.
And we need to embrace our shadow.
Yeah, hey.
And we need to embrace...
Preacher to the converted.
Yeah, so we need to embrace those things. So when I see... When I see the parts that people don't want to have seen, when I see their hidden stuff...
Right.
Nothing has ever made me go, whoa. Because with me, I've had 2 near-death experiences. That's really morbid. But it wasn't frightening to me. Like, I remember them. And I can
Anything particular that you can strongly remember from the incidences? Anything particularly
just
stuck with you?
Being in an absolute beautiful place in nature with some weird things going on.
Nature again.
I was in nature with my dog, and it was awesome. And the plants that were growing, there were hamburger plants and meatball plants growing on the ground.
Yeah, that's great. It's like Lucy in the Skyward Diamond.
Exactly. So I was like, this place is sweet. And it was just us. And at one point, we were sitting at a lake, and he's like, you have to go back. I'm like, I don't really want to. This is really cool. And he's like, it's not your time. You have to go. It's like, all right. So I was kind of bummed out. But I wasn't scared, and I didn't think it was a morbid thing to be afraid of. And because I know that this container holds more than just organs and bones and blood and lymph and water. It holds a spirit. It holds this energy that cannot be destroyed. So when this physical container, when this time is up and goes, the energy that's left inside will continue. And whatever form it wants to take, it can take. And it will be fine. I have a very hard time accepting when other people die. I get very sad, and people have passed on years and years ago. It still feels very fresh and new with me. But for me, I'm not afraid of my own death, and I don't think there's anything morbid about that. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna.
No, that's something very INFJ about that. George Harrison and INFJ used to talk
Sweet.
like that. So. All right, we're over our time.
All right.
So, Maria, thank you. That was wonderful.
Yes.
The INFJs will be very thrilled.